Hello and welcome to this week's lecture, which is about the fieldwork assignment. The fieldwork assignment is listed in your course syllabus as assignment number 5, Fieldwork Observation and Interview Report, and it's due session 14, May 3rd. It's a required key assessment, and it's worth 25% of your grade. For your fieldwork assignment, you should be planning to spend 10 hours of observations at 2 different schools. This is not 10 at each school, but 10 in total, so 5 hours at one school plus 5 hours at another school. These could be public schools or private schools or charter schools. You're going to do some observations and interviews and write a paper about your experience. You're going to upload that paper to Blackboard by May 3rd. You're also going to upload the paper and the fieldwork summary form that's on the course site to TaskStream by May 3rd. So 2 different uploads. In order to upload to TaskStream, you'll need a TaskStream account. A number of you already have this, but in case you don't, I've now placed at the bottom of the home page a TaskStream folder with these files: a guide to TaskStream, a key code that you'll need to create an account. If your TaskStream account has run out, instructions for renewing your subscription to TaskStream, and self-enrolling in a DRF portfolio so that you can attach yourself to the class. If you have any problems figuring this out after you've looked at these files, email me and I'll give you some assistance. Let's get back to talking about the fieldwork assignment. This week, I've uploaded a fieldwork planning form that'll get you started in this assignment. Make sure that you've downloaded this form so that you can follow along. At the top, you'll need to type your name. Under number 1, you'll need to list the names of the schools at which you are planning to conduct your observations. On the course site, I've provided a permission to observe form that looks like what you see at the bottom right here. Check yes or no as to whether you've provided this form to an administrator at the school. It's important that you do this because principals watch who comes in and out of their schools, and this explains the purpose of what you're doing there. If you already work there, it's still a courtesy to do this so that they'll know that you're involved in a classroom assignment. It has the dean's signature on it. So if you check no, please go ahead this week and give that form out. If you've been reading through the syllabus, you'll notice that the assignment requires that you select a topic of interest, that you focus your assignment around. So items 3 and 4 in this week's fieldwork planning form ask what that topic will be and why you're interested in that topic. The bullets at the bottom of this slide are right out of the syllabus. You could choose, for example, technology in the classroom to write about, student-teacher relationships, parent-teacher relationships, classroom management and discipline, diversity or multicultural education, gender equity, that is, treating boys and girls fairly and the same in the classroom, single-sex schools versus co-ed schools. This might be a good one if you have a single-sex school to observe and not such a good one if you don't. The role of the arts in the school, school environment, special ed, after-school programming, school management. These are only a few. You could think of others as long as they're directly related to educational topics. It should be fine. Item number 5 in the planning sheet asks you to identify the names of your participants. Here you will actually type in their real names and their title. For example, Mrs. Samantha Jones, principal at Bedford Elementary. In the paper, you will not identify these participants by names, but rather by pseudonyms. For example, you might call the principal Mrs. J. A first letter of a last name is often a good way to protect the privacy of the individual with whom you conducted the interview. But for here, you could go ahead and put their names. No minors, please. Do not interview anyone under the age of 18. This would include all students, of course. This is to protect their privacy and their rights. It's important to think of a few questions that you could ask each adult that will help you get to understanding the topic better. For example, if you're interested in technology in the classroom, you might ask the question of a teacher, how do you use technology in your classroom? You would not want to ask a question that has a very simple closed answer. For example, how many computers do you have in your classroom? You want to ask what are called open-ended response items. That is, questions that don't have simple yes or no or one or two word answers. How do you use technology in your classroom is an example of an open-ended response question because participants can speak to it for a while. There is no magic number of questions that I'm asking you to come up with. Some people can cover the topic in 3 or 4 questions. Some people might want to go 7 or 8 or 9 questions. In the syllabus, you'll notice a statement that says you should collect other data to corroborate your observation and interview data and cite this data in your report. It may include documents such as school flyers, newspapers, newsletters, internet data. For example, you can find this online, usually the number of students, racial demographics, percentage of special ed students, percentage of English language learners, percentage of students who get free lunch, school mission statement, and more. You don't need to turn this data in with the paper. Rather, you need to integrate it into your paper, mentioning it and referencing it, citing it as appropriate with APA citations. You'll also notice this statement in the syllabus. After you complete your 2 observations and 2 interviews, you must reflect on and write about what you have seen. You must relate it to what you are reading and learning about in this class. You will need to cite your sources using APA style and include a reference list. You must include at least 1 citation from the course readings, and you must cite any of the documents or internet sources you used in your research. You may also cite additional texts. Citing appropriate texts demonstrates your understanding of the relationship between theory and practice, or how what you read about relates to what goes on in reality. So, for example, if your topic is gender equity in the classroom, and you observe that the teacher called on boys more frequently than she called on girls, you might mention this in your paper, and then you might cite your text that stated that this is sometimes the case that teachers call on girls less than they call on boys. You have a number of citations throughout your paper, and at the end you have what's called a reference list. This is a page that comes at the end of your paper with a centered heading, one-word heading called references, and then you type the reference for each of your citations using APA format, as we covered earlier in the class. If you need a little bit of assistance with how to do this, there are APA format links that I placed on the home page in a folder called APA Resources. In the syllabus, it goes on to read, in your 4 to 7 page paper, remember this is double-spaced, you should compare and contrast the salient aspects of what you observed in each school. Depending on the focus of your paper, this may include a description of the school buildings, the classrooms, what was used to decorate the school walls, school banners, emblems, slogans, and mottos, multicultural images, student art, professional artwork, the demeanor of the students, student-teacher rapport, parent-student rapport, kinds of books in the libraries, the teaching materials and methods used, special services or accommodations provided, etc. Did anything surprise you? Did anything impress you? Did anything challenge your conception of what goes on in schools. So these are just ideas about what to put in your paper. How did the people you interviewed added to your understanding of the school's pedagogy, practices, policies, or protocols? Were they able to help you interpret the things you observed? Were they open and willing to discuss the topics you mentioned? In summary, you should discuss how your observations and interviews will inform your future work as an educator and a member of the school community. I would take the time, if I were you, to review the grading rubric for this. It's embedded in your course syllabus. The first 3 rows are presented here. You can see that each element that I'll be looking for is listed. For example, number 2, how is your writing? Is it organized, coherent, and does it contain key details? To score at a target or the highest level, you have to demonstrate exemplary clarity, organization, coherency, and attention to details. I encourage students, as they're writing a paper, to have the grading rubric beside them and refer to it to make sure they're covering each area sufficiently. I've gone a step further and provided you with a suggested outline for this paper. If you follow this outline and consult your rubric, you should do quite a good job on this assignment. The first section should be an introduction in which you talk about what your topic was, why did you select it, what experiences have you had as a student and or teacher with the topic. Following that, you should provide the context of observations, remembering that I know nothing about where you observed. So what schools did you observe at for how long? Just give some of the background in terms of the demographics and classrooms and the setting for your observations. Compare and contrast the schools. How are they alike? How are they different? Discuss your interviews. Whom did you interview? Remember to use pseudonyms. And what questions did you ask? Talk about the best practices that you observed in each setting, and talk about some things that maybe weren't best practices. Here's where you start to analyze your data. And all the things that you observed, all the data you collected, and this could be for example, the newsletter or whatever else you collected in addition to your observation and interview, what patterns do you see in your data that help you to understand your topic better? It's important to talk about the needs of diverse learners. How do these best practices and patterns relate to the needs of diverse learners? So if you have students who are struggling in the classroom, what patterns in your topic help them to address their learning needs, and what hindered them as well? What patterns did you observe as far as male, female? What patterns did you observe as far as gifted students? What patterns did you observe as far as language learners? And then how did this inform your future practice? How will a better understanding of the topic, in other words, what you learned, inform your practice as a teacher? What steps can you take so that you will be a better teacher because of this? Finally, a conclusion where you provide a summary and an overall evaluation of each of the 2 settings. Again, when you submit the assignment, you should submit your 4 to 7 page report as an attachment in Blackboard. The report paper and the Fieldwork summary form to TaskStream as well. Several students have asked me if that 4 to 7 page is a hard and fast rule about the length. It's not. If you feel you need a little more, feel free to do a little more. Make sure you're covering the content. But also, I wouldn't go on 20 or 30 pages because that's probably an indication that you're going into too much detail. In this week's Fieldwork planning form, the last thing that you're asked to do is to consider any questions or concerns you might have about this assignment and type them in. If you do have any questions or concerns, I'll try to respond to them directly to you. When you finish this form, you're going to save it and upload this form along with your paragraph on the Common Core State Standard lesson to the assignment link located in this week's Learning Module folder. Together, the plan for the fieldwork assignment and your paragraph will count for 1 point of your overall grade and will substitute for discussion posting because there's no discussion posting due this week. Again, this is a major assignment, so I encourage you to get started on your observations early rather than put them off until the last minute because it's very difficult then to do the 10 hours and to write the paper. And feel free to email me or put your questions here with any questions or concern. Thank you.